They say the best things in life are free. Well, that may be true for some things, but on today's show, we talk about the high cost of free money.
It's time for the My Retirement Clarity Podcast with Lee Perkins, financial planner and president of J.L. Perkins Wealth Management. Get ready for a good dose of inspiration, simplicity, implementation, and of course, clarity on how to successfully prepare for retirement and grow and preserve your wealth. Here's Ben George with Lee Perkins.
Hey there, welcome to the My Retirement Clarity Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Lee Perkins. I'm the founder and the owner of J.L. Perkins Wealth Management right here in Macon, Georgia. If you are a regular listener of the show, you probably already know, but for those who are new to the podcast, our firm specializes in working with retirees and pre-retirees that are usually 55 and older, and you can learn a whole lot more about what we do at our firm at www.myretirementclarity.com. All right, so the topic of today's show is called the high cost of free money. And I think there may be a real possibility that some people may take this episode as being a little bit too political, and maybe I'm doing nothing more than just bashing the current administration. But I want to be very, very clear up front. I am not just piling on the current administration. I'm talking about all administrations, Republicans and Democrats. So please be mindful of that as you listen to this over the next 10 minutes or so. So if you listen to this podcast, it probably means that you are in a stage of life where you're either already retired or you're considering retirement in the next couple of years. So I can't really imagine there's a lot of 25 or 30-year-olds tuning into the show. So if you're in that retirement demographic, in that stage of life, this means that you've now likely spent a vast majority of your life working. Every day you went to work, whether you were self-employed or if you worked for somebody else. You got up, you went to work, you earned money in the form of a paycheck. And that's really sort of the purpose of having a job. Now, I don't really think there are a lot of people out there who work for free. So what you're doing is you're trading your time, your talents, your effort, your knowledge, and the hard work that you put in. You're trading all of that for money. Now, does everybody make the same amount of money? Absolutely not. We all know people make different amounts of money based on a variety of different factors. We're not going to go into that on this show. We could do an entire episode on that. But the simple fact is some people make more money and some people make less. Ultimately, I really, in my heart, believe that you earn what you're worth. And so if you think you're worth more than you're making right now, we live in the greatest country in the world. We live in a free country, so you've got every right to leave your current job and go out and do something else to earn more money. And then when you earn that money, you've got a choice of what to do with it. We all have a choice of what to do with any money that we earn. And I think there's pretty much three things that you can do with the money that you earn. You can spend it, you can save it, or you can give it away. Now, in my opinion, I think you should do some of all three. You shouldn't spend everything that you make because I think at some point, obviously your paycheck is going to stop and you're going to need some savings. But you also can't save everything that you make because at some point you got to pay bills. You have to have money to live right now. And it's probably not a great idea to give away every dime that you make either. Although I would strongly encourage you to be a giver. Give something if you can. My wife and I give money to our church every single month in the form of a tithe. And I'm a firm believer that that's what God wants us to do, so we give generously. But at the end of the day, what you choose to do with your money, it's your choice. And in my opinion, the best thing to do with your money is to be wise by spending some, by saving some, and by giving some. But you have to do this in appropriate amounts for your situation. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there who don't save any money, and that's just the reality of things. They spend every dime that they have, and they've got no margin in their lives financially. And so this is why all the stats tell us that most people would be in a real financial mess if they missed just one paycheck. And we've probably all been in that situation at some point in our lives. So if they spend every dime that they make and they never save for retirement, they're likely going to wind up with fewer options in the future than those people who were disciplined enough to put away some money for the future. Sure, they'll get some Social Security, but ultimately their retirement lifestyle is going to be very limited, and they could eventually wind up on Medicaid when they get older. So, this outcome most of the time is a direct result of the choices that they made over their lifetime. Now, y'all hear me clearly. I'm not talking about people who are disabled or who have legitimate issues that keep them from working. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who make poor financial decisions. And most of these people have more stuff than all of us combined because there's no discipline in their spending and their savings. So for a lot of these people, since they don't control their own financial destiny, they're going to be dependent on others to help provide for them in the future. Specifically, it comes down to the government in some form of an entitlement or some type of direct handout. So naturally, what happens is this becomes a battle between politicians really to see who can give away the most money in the form of some type of benefit. And they do this to appeal to the largest group of voters. And I know this may sound harsh, but really, in my opinion, this is exactly what our politicians do. And again, just a reminder, I don't care if they're Democrats or they're Republicans, they all do it. Some just do it better and more often than other folks do. Hey there, sorry to interrupt the show, but I wanted to take just a quick second to tell you about our new e-newsletter called Uncommon Sense. Now I know the last thing you probably want is another email from a financial firm giving you the same old industry jargon that every brokerage firm out there gives you. I get it. Nobody wants that stuff because it's boring. But our newsletter is anything but boring. Information plus entertainment is infotainment. And that's the goal. And that's what Uncommon Sense is. So we want to inform you in a very entertaining way. So you'll get stories of how financial planning works in the real world and not some corporate boardroom of a Wall Street firm. You'll also get access to a lot of other great resources, so just head on over to our website, www.myretirementclarity.com, and click on the Uncommon Sense logo. Just put in a good email address and you'll be good to go. Now, back to the show. Here's what I would tell you. When the government decides that it wants to give away free money to someone or some group of people for whatever reason that they think of, they've got to get that money from somewhere. And since our government doesn't do anything to earn money, they don't have a product that they sell, the only way that they can get money is to get it from taxpayers. And so for the government to give something to somebody, they must take it from somebody else. And of course, they do this in the form of taxes. And there's nothing wrong with taxes. I think we should all pay our taxes. But the truth is, not everybody pays taxes. And so if you dig a little bit deeper, and you can Google all of this, you may be surprised at how many people actually don't pay any federal taxes. And so I did some research, and according to the National Taxpayer Union Foundation, back in 2019, the IRS data shows that over 1/3 of all tax filers had zero income tax liability. So think about that number just for a second. 1/3 of all people that file taxes paid no income taxes. And this number doesn't even include the large number of people who don't even file a tax return. So it's kind of crazy to think about that. But here's another stat that you may or may not be aware of. In 2019, the top 1% of taxpayers accounted for more income taxes paid than the bottom 90% combined. The top 1% paid over $612 billion in income taxes, while the bottom 90% paid just over $461 billion in income taxes. So this is really sort of a direct contradiction to the whole fair share talking point that our politicians use. So again, in my opinion, it's just a strategy to further divide our country based on wealth. And I will say this current administration did not invent wealth envy. They didn't do it. You can't put that on Joe Biden because he didn't invent wealth envy. Most politicians do it now, and they've been doing it for a very, very long time. So Now we learned that the latest governmental handout is forgiving college loans. There's tons of information out there. And so you've heard the numbers, $10,000 or $20,000 per person, depending on the type of student loan that they had. So what they've done is, in essence, is they've told a whole generation of people that you can go to college, you can get a student loan, study something that may or may not add to your earnings potential in the future, and the government will come along and forgive that loan. So this means that the person who borrowed that money in the first place doesn't have to pay it back, but the burden of paying this back is going to fall right on the shoulders of the American taxpayer. So if you're somebody who took out a student loan and you sacrificed to pay off those loans, extra jobs, whatever it was, this probably doesn't sit very well with you. You paid off your loans. So why should you and I have to pay off somebody else's debt? Well, the answer is you shouldn't have to. So again, in my opinion, this is just the latest way for the government to say, hey, if something goes wrong, don't worry about it. We've got your back. And so paying off student loan debt, to me, has become the latest play to be added to the political playbook, and it'll wind up in both parties' playbooks. So it's hard to imagine right now, but I can absolutely see a politician in the future offering to pay off car loans for people or even paying off mortgages. So right now, as we sit, it may sound really far-fetched, but I'm telling you, you should never, ever, ever underestimate a politician's ability to spend somebody else's money. And so just recently, in the last couple of weeks, I read that the governor of Pennsylvania, he's now pushing hard. He's pushing really hard for this. $2,000, a direct payment to every Pennsylvania resident to help them cope with inflation. So never mind the fact that flooding his state with a bunch of, quote, free money is going to lead to the exact same thing that he's fighting, that he says he's fighting, which is inflation. More dollars chasing fewer goods leads to inflation. So again, once again, that this is sort of leading more people to become more dependent on the government and less dependent on themselves for their personal financial situation. So handouts like this teach people that you don't have to take personal responsibility. The government's going to take care of you. And so for the segment of our society that pays taxes, it means one thing, and I say this on every single podcast. Taxes are going to have to increase in order to have the money to give away for the next program. So the takeaway from today's show is simple. Nothing is free. There is a very, very high cost, and somebody will pay for it. So if you're one of the 2 out of every 3 tax filers who do pay taxes, you will pay for the free that somebody else gets. So that's it for the show today. I hope this episode helps put things into perspective. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Lee Perkins here, and I want to thank you so much for tuning into the show today. If you like our podcast, we would be honored if you would share the show with others. And one great way to do that is by posting the show to your social media pages or by just telling others about it. Either way, we would really appreciate it. And of course, if you do enjoy the show, we would appreciate it if you would give us a 5-star review. And this certainly helps other people like you find our show. And if you want to learn a little more about our firm and how we help people have the best retirement they can possibly have, go check us out at www.myretirementclarity.com. There are a lot of great resources that you can access directly on the website. And of course, if you want to have a conversation with me, you can visit www.talkwithlee.com, and this will take you directly to my calendar. And there you can schedule a 15-minute phone call so I can learn a little bit more about your situation. Of course, everybody is not a great fit for our firm, but if I think we can add value and put you in a better situation, I'll let you know, and we can certainly talk about the next steps. So thanks again for tuning into the show, and we'll catch you next time.
Investment advisory services are offered by J.L. Perkins Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor and insurance agency. Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, legal, or investment advice. Always consult with a qualified tax, legal, or investment professional before taking any action.